Previously on Flames and Frost. Hidden within the stream of exiles, Asha, Frost and Cinder found an unlikely ally, Mira, a jade dragon whose ice dragon friend had been killed in the first sweep. She tended their wounds. She kept their secret. She gave them hope. But fear travels faster than kindness. A suspicious fire dragon, terrified of what extra attention a hybrid might bring, betrayed them to the patrols. In the chaos that followed, Cinder's gift became his curse, his steam shimmer blazing bright for all to see. Mira bought them time with her life. Now Asha, Frost and Cinder are alone in the fog, injured and hunted, with every patrol in the realm converging on their position. The secret is out. The hunt has a face, and the boundary, their only hope, lies somewhere ahead in the darkness. Episode 4: Exodus. The fog was a mercy and a prison. It hid them from the patrols circling above, but it hid everything else too. The terrain beneath their claws, the distance to safety, the shape of the world they were stumbling through. Asha moved by instinct, one wing dragging, Cinder pressed against her chest. Beside her, Frost limped on 3 legs, his injured wing folded tight, his breath coming in sharp, controlled bursts. Neither of them spoke. Words cost energy. Energy they didn't have. Above the fog, patrol calls echoed, the confirm call repeating in overlapping waves. 3 sharp notes. A chorus of hunters closing in.
There's a gap, ahead and left. No heat signatures for maybe 200 lengths.
Asha adjusted course without questioning. Cinder's gift had become their only map.
Good. Keep scanning. Tell us if anything changes.
Okay, I will.
They moved through the gap, a narrow channel between 2 rock formations that the fog made invisible until they were inside it. The stone walls muffled the patrol calls, turning them distant, almost dreamlike. For a moment, Asha let herself breathe. Then Cinder stiffened against her.
Someone's ahead. 1 signature. Cold. Really cold. And they're not moving.
Frost's head came up, nostrils flaring. His voice was barely a breath.
I think it's an ice dragon. Old. Injured, maybe.
They rounded a bend in the channel and found her. An older ice dragon lay against the rock wall. 1 wing was shattered, not torn, shattered. The bones visible through the membrane. Her breathing was shallow, rattling, the sound of someone who had stopped fighting. Her eyes opened as they approached, milky with age, but still sharp.
More runners. Good. Keep running. Don't stop for the dying.
Frost moved closer, his voice soft.
What happened?
What do you think? I was too slow. They were too fast. The usual story.
She coughed, a wet, terrible sound, and her eyes drifted to Cinder. For a long moment, she just looked at him. Then something shifted in her expression. Not fear, not disgust, something like wonder.
So it's true. Fire and ice joined. I heard the calls. Thought it was just panic talking.
Asha's wings tightened around Cinder, but the old dragon just laughed, a sound like cracking ice.
Relax, Mother. I'm not going to betray you. What would be the point? I'll be dead before the next patrol sweep.
She lifted 1 trembling claw and pointed deeper into the channel.
The boundary fault is that way. Half a league, maybe less. There's a basin beyond it. I've heard others talking. Fire and ice, gathering. Waiting.
But what are they waiting for?
For enough of us to survive. For someone to say go. For a reason to believe there's something worth walking toward.
Her eyes found Cinder again.
Maybe you're it. Maybe you're the reason. Or maybe you're just a child who deserves to live. Either way, run. Don't let them catch you.
Frost hesitated. Every instinct told him to keep moving. But something held him there. Some thread of connection to this stranger who shared his blood, his element, his exile.
I can't just leave you here.
You can. You must. I've lived my life. That child hasn't. Don't waste his future on the little I have left.
She reached out and touched Frost's face with one cold claw. A blessing. A goodbye.
The ice remembers, young one. Even when we're gone. Now go. Make something worth remembering.
Frost closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. Asha was already moving, Cinder tight at her side. Frost followed. They left the old dragon behind, her rattling breath fading into the fog. They didn't look back. Looking back was a luxury they couldn't afford. High above the fog, Kindrick circled with Vex. The confirm calls had given them a direction. The hybrid family was somewhere below, moving toward the boundary. All they had to do was seal the exits and wait. But something was wrong. Kindrick could feel it, a tension in his chest that had nothing to do with the hunt.
Captain, the eastern approach is covered. We've got the ridge line held. If they try to break north, we'll see it.
Good. Hold position.
Captain, you seem distracted.
Kindrick was quiet for a long moment. Below them, the fog churned like a living thing, hiding everything, revealing nothing.
Do you know what we're actually hunting, Vex?
A crossbreed. The thing the prophecy warned about.
Not quite, Vex. We're hunting a child. Not because of something they did, but for simply existing.
But the council gave us these orders for a reason.
The council is safe in their chambers. They're not the ones who have to look a mother in the eye while we drag her child away.
Vex had no response for that. They circled in silence, the fog below them thick with secrets, the sky above them empty of answers.
I'm tired of following orders that make me cruel.
Captain.
Hold position, Vex. Watch the eastern approach. If anyone asks, I'm scouting the western ridge.
But there's nothing on the western ridge. It's a dead end.
Exactly.
He banked away before Vex could respond, his wings cutting through the fog, his heart pounding with something that felt like treason. Or maybe like the first honest thing he'd done in weeks. The channel opened onto a steep descent, loose stone and treacherous footing that made every step a gamble. Asha went first, her claws finding purchase through instinct and desperation. Cinder clung to her back now, his small claws digging into her scales, his breath hot against her neck. Frost followed, his injured wing dragging, leaving a trail of blood on the stone that he couldn't hide and didn't have the energy to worry about.
The boundary's close. I can feel it. The heat signatures change on the other side. Warmer. More of them. Lots more.
The descent leveled out onto a narrow ledge. Below, a frost cut through ancient stone, marking the boundary between the realm and whatever lay beyond. Above, the fog was thinning, patrol shadows visible against the grey. They were exposed. Completely, terribly exposed.
Move, now! Don't stop until we get across.
They ran, scrambled, half fell down the final slope toward the boundary. Behind them, a patrol call rang out. The confirm call, 3 sharp notes, impossibly close. Asha hit the water first, It was cold, ice dragon territory cold, and it shocked the breath from her lungs. But she kept moving, Cinder clutched against her chest, her legs churning through the current. Frost was right behind her, the water turning to slush around him, his element responding even through his exhaustion. The far bank was 10 lengths away. 5, 3. A shadow fell over them. Asha looked up and saw wings, patrol wings, descending fast, claws extended. Frost surged forward, past Asha, past Cinder, forcing his body into the space between them and the diving patrols. Ice erupted from his jaws, not a wall, just a burst, a distraction, enough to force the attacker to veer. But there were more. 3 patrols, 4, converging from every direction. Asha reached the bank. She threw Cinder onto solid ground and turned to help Frost. And then a new sound cut through the chaos. A roar, deep, resonant, coming from beyond the boundary. Fire dragons, dozens of them, rising from the basin beyond the river, their flames lighting the fog like sunrise. And beside them, ice dragons, their frost mixing with the fire, creating a wall of steam that rolled toward the patrols like a living thing. The patrols hesitated. They were enforcers, not soldiers. They were trained to hunt the weak, not fight the strong. And the exiles beyond the boundary were not weak. Not anymore.
Fall back. All patrols, fall back to the realm boundary. Do not engage.
The patrol captain's voice, not Kendrick, someone else. Someone who understood that this hunt had just become a war they weren't prepared to fight. The shadows retreated, the wings pulled back, and in the sudden silence, Asha dragged Frost onto the far bank, both of them gasping, bleeding, alive. Cinder stood between them, his small body trembling, his eyes wide with something that wasn't quite fear anymore. It was hope. The basin beyond the boundary was larger than Asha had imagined. Fire dragons and ice dragons filled it, hundreds of them, maybe more. They'd made camp in the shelter of high stone walls, with sentries posted on every ridge and a stream of fresh water running through the center. It wasn't a refugee camp. It was the beginning of something else. Something that looked almost like a home. The fire dragon elder, Pyrrhus, approached them. Old, scarred, his scales dimmed by age, but his eyes bright with purpose.
You made it. We saw the patrols converging and thought we might have to mount a rescue.
But you came anyway. Why would you risk your lives for us?
Because that's what we do now. We don't leave our own behind, any of our own.
His eyes moved to Cinder, to the grey scales with their impossible shimmer, to the child who was both fire and ice, something entirely new.
So, this is the one they're so afraid of.
Asha's wings tightened instinctively. But the elder just smiled, a tired, knowing smile.
Relax, Asha. We've all heard the prophecy. Most of us have decided it's nonsense. And even if it isn't...
He knelt, bringing himself to Cinder's eye level.
A child isn't responsible for what they might become, only for what they choose to be. And from what I hear, you've been pretty brave so far.
I got a jade dragon killed. She's dead because of me.
The elder's expression softened.
She died because she chose to protect you. That's not the same thing. Carrying guilt for other people's choices. That's a weight that'll crush you if you let it.
He stood, his joints creaking.
There's food by the central fire, water in the stream, healers near the eastern wall. Rest. Recover. Tomorrow, we start planning.
Planning for what?
For whatever comes next.
The realm cast us out. Fine. We'll build something better. Something they'll wish they'd been part of.
He turned and walked toward the central fire, where other older dragons were gathering, fire and ice, side by side, their ancient enmity forgotten in the face of shared survival. Asha watched him go. Then she looked at Frost, at Cinder, at the basin full of exiles who had somehow become a community.
Is this real? Are we actually safe?
I don't know, but it's more than we had this morning.
Cinder tugged at his mother's wing. His voice was small but steady.
The heat signatures here, they're different. Calmer. Less afraid.
Asha pulled him close.
That's because they're not running anymore. And neither are we.
For the first time in days, Cinder's breath came easy. No shimmer, no steam, just a child, exhausted and safe, falling asleep against his mother's side. Night fell over the basin. Fires burned low. Sentries watched the boundary with vigilant eyes. And in the darkness, two futures took shape. Behind them, the realm grew quieter. The patrols returned to their territories, their mission incomplete, but their orders unchanged. The council would meet again. New decrees would be issued. The fear that had driven the exile would continue to spread, turning neighbor against neighbor, race against race. The realm that had once been united was fracturing, and no one inside it seemed to notice or care. But beyond the boundary, something else was happening. Fire dragons shared warmth with ice dragons who had never known heat that didn't hurt. Ice dragons cooled fevers for fire dragons who had never known cold that didn't kill. Hatchlings played together, red scales and blue scales tumbling in the dust, their parents watching with exhausted smiles. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. Old prejudices didn't disappear overnight, and trauma left scars that would take generations to heal. But it was a start. Near the edge of the basin, where the boundary fault marked the line between exile and realm, Kindrick landed in the shadows. He'd told Vex he was scouting the western ridge. He'd lied. He was here, watching the exiles, watching the community they were building, watching the future the council had tried to prevent. A future that looked nothing like the catastrophe the prophecy had promised.
What if we were wrong? What if we were always wrong?
No one answered. The question hung in the air, unanswered and unanswerable. After a long moment, Kindrick spread his wings and flew back toward the realm. He had a report to make, a lie to tell, a conscience to live with. But something had changed in him, something that couldn't be unchanged. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice whispered, "Maybe next time, you'll make a different choice." Dawn broke over the basin. The Fire Elder stood on a high rock, his voice carrying across the gathered exiles.
We've been driven from our homes, cast out by those who feared what we might become. They called us dangerous. They called us a threat.
He paused, letting the words settle.
But look around you. Fire and ice, standing together. Rivals who became allies, strangers who became family. This is what they feared. Not destruction, unity. Not chaos, community.
The new Ice Elder rose beside him, her voice joining his.
The realm chose fear. We choose something else. We choose to build, to protect, to become something they never imagined we could be. Today, we move north, together, not as fire dragons, not as ice dragons, but as one people, forged in exile and united by choice.
A sound rose from the gathered dragons, not a cheer, but something deeper. A rumble of agreement, a chorus of commitment, the sound of a community finding its voice. Asha stood with Frost and Cinder at the edge of the crowd. She watched the elders, watched the dragons around her, former rivals, now neighbors. Watched her son, who had stopped trembling, who was looking at the gathered exiles with something like wonder.
We chose each other on purpose. And now, look what that choice became.
More than we ever imagined.
Mom? Dad? Are we going to be okay?
Asha looked at Frost. Frost looked at Asha. And in that look was everything. The fear they'd survived, the love that had sustained them, the future they were walking toward.
We're going to be more than okay, little one. We're going to be home.
The exiles began to move. Scouts took to the sky. Guardians flanked the column. The injured were carried in the center, the hatchlings protected by a ring of watchful adults. They moved north, toward mountains no one had mapped, toward a future no one could predict, toward whatever waited beyond the horizon. Behind them, the realm grew smaller. The boundary fault became a line in the distance, then a memory, then nothing at all. And ahead was everything. Cinder, riding on his father's back, looking forward instead of behind. His scales caught the morning light, grey and shimmering, fire and ice made flesh. He was the thing the prophecy had warned about, the thing the council had feared, the thing that had driven an entire realm to madness. But he was also just a child with parents who loved him, a child surrounded by a community that had chosen to protect him, a child who, for the first time in his short life, wasn't afraid. The prophecy had spoken of destruction, of a world torn apart by fire and frost. But prophecies don't account for love. They don't account for choice. They don't account for the stubborn, beautiful refusal to become what fear expects. The realm had tried to prevent a catastrophe. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous. They had created hope. And hope, once kindled, is very hard to extinguish. The exiles disappeared into the northern mountains, their wings catching the light, their future unwritten. This is not the end of their story. It is only the beginning. What challenges await the exiles in the northern mountains? Will the realm's fear drive them to pursue? And what will Cinder become, raised in a community forged by love instead of law? The journey continues, in flames and frost.